Do you have somebody calling in? Or?
No.
Oh, is this? Okay. I'll use the gavel today. I'm going to call to order the Laramie County Community College Board of Trustees business meeting, Wednesday, October 17th, 2012. Let me welcome, we just got a few special guests. I'll call them special guests. I know we got lots of folks here tonight, but we do have 4 of the candidates running for the LCCC Trustees Board, and I just want to introduce them. David Shaw, I saw you over there. David, how are you? Don Erickson, I know where Don ended up. Don. Misty Heil, I know where Misty is. And Christine Lummis. Christine, welcome you guys. Thanks for coming to the meeting. We appreciate it. Minutes. I'm hoping you all have had a chance to look through the minutes. And if there are no corrections and so on, I'd entertain.
I move to approve
a motion. Second. Got a second?
And Mr. Chair,
yes.
May I make a brief comment about the minutes?
Sure.
I was absent the last couple of meetings. I was absent the last meeting, but the meeting before that I called in on the phone.
Right.
But I want to commend Vicki on her minutes, because it's wonderful when I can sit down before a meeting and read the minutes of a meeting that I missed and know exactly what happened and who said what and what went on. And thank you, Vicki.
Well, thank you, Vicki. Okay, any discussion on the minutes? If none, let's take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, reports to the board. LCCC reports, Student Government Association. Michael Wandrish has to wander up from the corner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, we're carrying on with what we've been doing as our last report. Continuing with the Halloween bash, Melissa Galante is heading up the faculty, staff, student costume party that's going to be taking place on the 30th. Our diversity club is encouraging campus activities by participating in a raffle. Get raffle tickets for showing up at the different events, and we're giving away an iPod at the end of this semester. Elections Committee, we have a commit to register/vote drive taking place on the 25th of October. We were going to have the registration application for voting available to the students, and we're under the impression that's going to help cover our Title IV obligations. Food service, we have a Sedesco comment survey coming out on the LCCC website with a survey put in by Justin of Sedesco, just taking any comments and concerns, compliments for Sedesco and what they've been doing for us as well here on campus. And service, we're doing a department versus department food drive that we're going to run through either right before Thanksgiving or just right after, and we're going to have a traveling trophy that's going to go around from department to department on which department can raise the most or bring together the most food. Something that we thought would be a great idea to start this year and leave it for future student government associations to keep going in the future. So other than that, everything's jogging along just great.
Okay. Any questions of the SGA president?
Mr. Chair.
Anybody?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, who's the food going to?
It's, I don't know the exact pantry. We had talked to Needs Inc. and also possibly Salvation Army, and they both haven't come back to the person on that committee that has been trying to contact them. So it's going to be one of the two. I know Needs Inc. Works with the community itself, and obviously Salvation Army as well. So I can find out for sure. I will find out for sure by our next meeting.
Okay. If nobody wants it, I can always use food.
It's not going to email, but we do know that.
No.
Okay, any other questions? Michael, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It's an inside joke.
Okay, board report number 2,
be
staff
more
senate,
outside,
Kevin Yarborough.
I think.
Is he here today, or Kim?
Right here.
Okay, hi Kim.
Hello. I just have a couple of things. On October 30th, we're having the SGA Staff Senate Halloween party. And we're also going to have this faculty and staff costume contest. And then the other event we have is a chili cook-off, which will be November 16th. And we're going to, this year, the money's going to benefit the Randy Miller Memorial Scholarship. So we're hoping that we have some good soup and chili and have some good funds go to that scholarship. So, and right now, that's about all we got going on with Staff Senate.
Okay. Any questions? Staff senate? Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, faculty senate, Jeff Smittle.
All right, thank you, Chair and Board of Trustees. I'd like to apologize, we didn't have any minutes for you. I didn't realize that they didn't get to Vicki, and so you're going to get a bunch of minutes at the next business meeting, and you can have lots of questions for me then. So I guess I'm going to get up here and wing it and talk about maybe some things we've been working on. Faculty Senate has been working on collecting input on campus reorganization. We've collected some that is going to be forwarded through our representative to College Council, so College Council can have that discussion on reorganization. One of our big concerns was assessment, not so much that we need assessment, we all know that we need assessment, but we wanted to really focus on how we could help assessment and what our role would be in trying to get faculty on board. And so I asked for a meeting with Laura Groh, the assessment coordinator, and Dr. Pat, and that grew into a much bigger committee, and we started talking about assessment and how it ties into program review and how it ties into strategic planning and how it ties into many things. And Dr. Pat, who is very good to work with, nabbed a bunch of us for a bunch of committees. And so I'm glad to see, though, that we're moving in that direction to look at how things tie together. I think that is absolutely the right direction for the college. We talked a little bit about the academic calendar. There is certainly some discussion going on about whether we should match UW's, whether we should have a 16-week versus a 15-week. One of the things I think that we're going to work on here in the future, working with LLT and Dr. Pat, is to look at doing we did a survey on the calendar last year, asked some questions of faculty, but maybe asking some more specific questions to determine what faculty thinks work best. And of course, we have to get input from other areas across the campus as well. So I guess them are some things that we've been working on. I can tell you that our faculty senate meetings, I feel, have been going very well. I really appreciate that our academic VP comes to the meetings and stays in the meetings, and that's something we didn't have in the past. And Dr. Schaefer comes for part of the meeting, always gives us an opportunity to ask questions and get input. And so I think that's been positive. So how was that for winging it?
That's super.
Good job.
Any questions of Jeff? Faculty senate, yes ma'am.
I remember when my kids went to school, the LCSD, LCCC, and UW all coordinated their school schedules so that parents could take all of their children on vacation at the same time. And I thought it was a great idea.
And we get a lot of input from faculty wanting that. In fact, we did a survey last year, and we asked, should our spring break match the school district or should it match UW? And an overwhelming amount of faculty said it should match the school district. The problem is that the school district is so late, and we do have students over in Albany County campus that really need to match UW, so it's really a struggle. It would be really nice, and I don't know how that would happen, to get the school district to have a conversation between all the entities and trying to match up that spring break. I totally agree with you. I just don't know how it happens, so.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, any other questions of Jeff? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, and our last report, LCCC. I didn't see Les here. Do we have anybody else representing LCCC? Education Association? Okay. Well, we'll just have to get caught up next time, so we'll skip them today. I will open it up for any public comment on any of the reports, if anybody in the public has any comments. Okay, if not, we will move on to President's reports. And we got quite a little list here, so Joe, go ahead.
Yes, we do. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you. I will try to move through these. I anticipate there'll be some questions and comments, so please stop me as I'm going through if there are. The first one is just a real brief one. It is an update on our Vice President of Academic Affairs search. We have a very competent interim in Dr. Schwartfiger, who is here with us, and it's good to see him hitting the ground and working with the faculty and with people to really start to connect some of the dots that we need connecting. So thank you for the work that you're doing, Pat. We have reinitiated that search. It is up and actively recruiting. As of today, we have 6 applicants, qualified applicants, who have submitted. The search committee has met for their first time to sort of chart out the timeline, and we're feeling pretty positive about this search and the different timing of the search and the type of candidates that we're already getting interest in. And so we'll keep you apprised of that. Trustee Mosier, as you know, is on that committee, and he could keep you updated as well. But we're feeling pretty good about this timeline and this search, and hoping that we're successful as we move through. The second item is just an update. I've emailed you in the past memos and different communications I've sent out to the campus in regards to the campus reorganization. As many of you know, we are entering into the second phase of what we've been talking about as a 3-phase reorganization. And so you have 3 different attachments with this item. The first one is the campus reorganization update. It basically identifies what we've done in phase 1, what's been completed, the proposed elements of phase 2, and then a brief look at what might happen in phase 3 of what we're working on. Right now, phase 2, nothing has been decided or determined. We will be having a conversation next week on the 25th with College Council and advancing a conversation at least about the first 3 elements in phase 2 for them. In our conversations both at College Council and with some of you, there's been questions about, okay, we need a snapshot of 2 things, an organizational picture, if you will, of where we came from, where we're at right now, and where we're going to end up. And then the other question that has come up is, so if we do all this change, how do we know if it's actually making any difference? And so the other 2 attachments are those organizational chart snapshots, to the best of my ability, to kind of provide you a look at what the college looked like when I first started in January, what it looks like as of right now with the transition, and what the proposed organizational structure might look like here by the end of the fiscal year. The proposed structure has some disclaimer and some notes with that, but to give you an indication essentially of this migration or this change in the organizational structure. The other piece is a reminder. We presented to you a draft of the key performance indicators of the institution back this last summer. Have had a study session, a follow-up meeting on that. We are now just getting to the process of pulling the first round of data, but those indicators, we have performance indicators or our outcome indicators, and we have efficiency indicators or more of our means indicators. Those will be what we monitor and what I'll ask you to monitor as the board to say, is the institution doing better? Are we improving? Are these changes actually helping? And those are the measures, those are the indications that we'll want to look at year in, year out, and really assess whether or not the institution is performing the way that we want to do it. Now, certainly there are changes that will happen through reorganization that we will do our best to assess in more of a formative process as we implement something. Is it actually making a change and looking at through a different lens? But these institutional measures are really what I want to continue to draw your focus on to say, is is the health of the organization well? Are we helping our students succeed? So those are there for your information. Some of you, I believe most of you have probably read through or at least aware of what we're working on. Before I move on, Mr. Chairman, I might pause to see if there's questions or comments.
Any questions or comments? Because we've had a few discussions, and you hit it right on the head, Joe. It's that things are happening so fast around here, it's a little tough to see where we were, where we are, and where we're headed. Not that that's bad, it's just tough. So
Sure.
Go ahead, Ed.
Mine, to begin with, has to do with the indicators for institutional effectiveness. When might those start being trapped?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Mosier, our hope was honestly that we would have those for you. We have had some internal cannibalism of our employees, and so Dennis McAllister, who was a data analyst within the Institutional Research Office, has moved to Human Resources, so Anne Murray is running a solo ship. She is working on this now. The good thing is we have the majority of the data. With the new way we're looking at these statistics, though, requires her to update some of her reports. We're hoping to have these here within the next month or so, and I'm really hoping sooner than later, at least for a first blush of what we have to give us an indication of where we're at. So certainly before the holidays, we'll be looking at a draft of the first blush of the data on the key performance indicators.
When we get those, I would like to, and I realize that's kind of a bit of a monster, but have some explanation. I know back at the beginning when you were putting this together, there was a description which seems pretty simple to begin with, but when you start saying what do we mean by enrollment, when is, all that kind of stuff, it would really help if we had kind of a cheat sheet knowing what that data really represents.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Mosier, I did not overburden you. We actually have a full comprehensive handbook. It's about 25 or 26 pages long. And for each of these indicators, we spell out the specific statistic of interest, how we're calculating, what we're calculating it, what we benchmark it against, when we do the calculation, as well as a rationale for why it's included in here. I don't believe those are publicly posted, but they will be, we'll get them posted out to the website, and we can certainly distribute them to you again as well, because it is a good handbook on our key performance indicators that gets to those questions.
Thank you.
Kevin.
I know you've just answered some questions about these key performance indicators, but I might ask just a couple of others. Under academic preparation, you have concurrent dual enrollment participation. How does participation really help us with academic preparation?
The reason, one of the primary reasons why we engage in concurrent enrollment is to create a college-going culture while they're still in high school. And so getting students engaged in and actually pursuing college credit while they're still in high school has actually led to greater continuation rates, faster accumulation of college credits, as well as greater persistence to degree. And so we believe that looking at and engaging students in dual enrollment, and this is one blush at that concurrent enrollment, is an indicator of how well we're actually engendering the pipeline of a college-going culture here in Laramie and Albany County.
Let me ask you one other, too. The achievement of LCCC core abilities, there's been undoubtedly a lot of discussion over these core abilities. I realize I can go look at your 25-page handbook and see what's put together, but could you just summarize, what did you do about those core abilities? Did you throw the old ones overboard and come up with ones that are easier to measure, or what?
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Kilty, we have done little with those as they exist. As part of the conversation that you heard Mr. Schmidl refer to and the work that we're doing on assessment, that is actually one of the things we will be looking at more comprehensively. There is interest amongst the faculty, I believe I can state this, that while a portion of those core abilities are most likely relevant and things we will want to continue to assess. There are things that perhaps may be lacking, and then some that just are too ambiguous for us to actually generate data about that. And so part of the project and the work that we're doing now on one hand is figuring out the framework, the vernacular we use, the types of language, the types of tools that we use to actually assess at this level, rubrics, different types of assessments. And then the next phase is figuring out a systemic way to actually collect the evidence in alignment with these learning outcomes for the institution. So, for example, the communication outcomes, written and verbal communication, we have I think, quite well-designed rubrics to assess those. We have not developed the assessment process or protocol for which we will gather that evidence from our students. That's one of the steps that we have to take. I don't get any indication that we've had any concern about assessing for communication abilities, both written and verbal. Learn responsibly, a little bit more vague and a little bit harder to really understand, and I think that's the work that we need to do. So I anticipate that we will probably see some modification to those, but I would be surprised if key elements that exist in these didn't exist in whatever we end up with.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
You brought this up yourself here just a second ago, and reminded me of something that I've been thinking about for a bit. But you mentioned that the faculty are interested in being involved in this. To what extent are the faculty sort of driving this assessment of core abilities? Are they driving it, or is it really being driven by somewhere else on the campus?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Kilty, I would say probably both. As you're probably aware, the Student Learning Assessment Committee is comprised of both faculty and some key staff. It is chaired and led by a faculty member, Laura Groh. The assessment, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Dr. Schwertfeger, but the assessment group that is being pulled together is predominantly staffed by faculty and then with the academic affairs officer. So to that extent, if they're driving that conversation, I would say so. Interesting, not to get too far off on a tangent, but an interesting conversation came up as we were talking assessment. I don't even remember where the conversation was, but that concept of faculty-driven process, that assessment should be faculty-driven, assessment should be faculty-driven assessment. What we assess, without a doubt. But one of the things we're finding is how we assess has to actually be a tandem effort that includes some administrative support and key personnel. For example, Anne Murray Institutional Research is a critical element in establishing how we assess. And so I think we've maybe done a disservice in saying, well, if assessment has to be faculty-driven, oh, by the way, faculty, you that are, full-time and you believe this is the model we're doing, but we want you to do something else, figure it out and let us know, isn't necessarily the right model. So the faculty-driven is really in what we assess, and the elements critical to or connected to the pedagogy, but how we assess, the mechanisms, the tools, the repositories that we have set up to collect evidence, and the analysis and some of those things are the things that require it to be more than just faculty-driven, but really a collaborative effort. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay, could I ask one more?
Sure.
One more question here.
One more.
This has to do with the organizational structure. And, I go back to January 17, and I look at this organizational structure, and, it looks about as broad as the one that we're planning to head toward by June 30th. Well, when I look at the actual offices on this, we've got the director of the foundation and the House General Legal Counsel and so forth. You could almost argue that those aren't such deep parts of the organization, that they could almost be some of these boxes coming off the side here. And you look at the organizational structure as of June 30th, and everybody reporting to you has some pretty deep responsibility here, and probably a lot of things to talk about. Are you comfortable with the number of direct reports that you've got in this organizational structure?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Kilty, completely. Actually, it reduces my direct reports by 2, I believe.
Okay.
So I'm completely comfortable with that. The big differentiator for me with the structure that I stepped into was not just that I had people reporting to me, but the depth at which I had to be engaged in their operations versus having a structure with very competent leadership that I could be supportive across the institution. And I see that as one of the fundamental differences with it. So I'm completely comfortable with where we're headed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
one thing with regards to the proposal that we're looking at, organizational structure, you indicated October 25th as having a discussion at College Council and a meeting there. I just wonder if you would share with us a little bit of how this is going to be processed and any timelines related to that process, how you get from where we are now to getting down the road, because you've provided, I think, some pretty clear proposals here, but they will probably bring a great deal of comment because of the significance of what's taking place. And I'm just wondering how that will be processed. So if you could maybe share a little bit of the process and how we play a role down the road, not in terms of decision-making, because that's not what I see as our role, but rather as being informed about that.
You know, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Mosier, I was actually hoping you would answer that question for me. But maybe not. Maybe that's what you pay me for, and I appreciate that every month. So you're certainly correct that this proposal and these types of changes naturally and rightfully bring a lot of comment, because it is significant change without a doubt. We have essentially three parts of any of these changes. One is making the decision, do we do it? Then two is planning for how we do it, and then three is implementing it and getting it done. And I think all of those things are going to take some time. For this second phase, we are really in the let's decide if we're doing it. And so this proposal actually went out about a month ago, I believe, to College Council, and since then there have been a significant number of meetings. There has been feedback collected. Each of the major constituency groups, the faculty, the staff, have all provided comments and have been having those conversations with that. Some of those conversations will continue and will ensue. There are some that really the comments and conversations have been limited or almost absent. Those are the items that I will bring forward to College Council next week for them to consider and make a recommendation to me, basically. And so they're actually item 13, 14, and 15 on this reorganization, the creation of the Institutional Effectiveness Office, the hiring of that, the Athletics and Activities Division, the hiring of that, and the Dean of the School of Health Science and Wellness, and actually hiring that dean. And those are ones that we'll bring forward. The remainder in phase two still require some additional conversations, and we'll continue to collect feedback and have those conversations. But I hope to get us to a point of we're doing it or we're not doing it here soon, because as we get deeper into some of these proposals, they are going to require some very careful planning in how we implement and how we transition and what we do. In regards to your question about the board's role in this, one of the things with your new governance policies that I'm charged with is creating an organizational structure that will help meet the organizational ends, your priorities, and what you expect that the institution will be producing and will be doing. And that's really where I see your role, is you asking me for both formative, ongoing feedback on, are these changes making a difference? Are these changes making a difference? But then also the request for that summative, that final evaluation to say, okay, is the institution better? And that's where the performance indicators come in. So I will keep you abreast, both on a formative and frequent basis in regards to campus reorganization. And then certainly I'll ask you to take a look and hear and say, is the campus better? You know, do we have fewer internal issues? Are students succeeding at a higher rate? What's enrollment doing? All those good things that we'll look at in terms of those performance indicators.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Joe? Thank you so much for the update. I think it was apropos at this point in time.
You're welcome, Mr. Chairman. Let me run through. The next one is more for your information at this point, but I'm hoping that you will consider a conversation at one of your next study sessions. We've been having numerous conversations about the capital campaign, our Building Forward project, and the activities that are associated with that. One of the activities that we've discussed and believe is in our future is to approach our community and our voters to ask them to help support at least our first two priority projects, the University Student Center and the Flex Tech building. You have a decision point, or we have a decision point to make, since it would be a special election in 2013. We can do that in, please help me out, May, August, or November. Do I have that correct? And there are strengths and weaknesses of each of those considerations. And so we can certainly have some conversation now, but this is more me prodding you to start giving that some thought. You know, where do you feel would be the best strategy for the institution? I can certainly bring you a recommendation. I would be happy to do that. But I think it's worthwhile to have you give that some thought as well, because you will be helping us communicate to the community and to the constituency, and those dates make a difference in how we approach this campaign and this process. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you want to have discussion, but this is more, let's talk about this at one of the next study sessions and give it some thought between now and then.
I'm open to any discussion right now. And then Vicki, I don't know, what do we have on our next study session agenda? Okay. Can we I think it's probably appropriate that we dive into it a little bit more as quickly as we can. So I would like that on the agenda if we can. And I'm open for any discussion right now. I mean, it's a timing thing, in my opinion. As far as being able to get whatever materials we think we need to get ready, and so on. And so there's that thought process and so on. So, yes, Brenda.
Mr. Chairman, so at our November meeting, is that when we can get maybe a report from Lisa on the pros and cons of all the different dates? Is that what you were thinking,
Yes.
Joe? Okay, all right.
Or at least be able to talk about that, and then I imagine that, we need to take some type of official action fairly soon.
Yeah.
So everybody's got the target to shoot for, and we don't move it, so. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, since Dr. Schaefer brought this up, he said that there are pros and cons to any one of these dates. Are you prepared to actually talk about some of those pros and cons right now?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Kilty, thanks for putting me on the spot. Yeah, just briefly, I can certainly do that. The timing is one of the biggest pros or cons. Certainly, if we're looking at a May date, that shortens up our time frame to prepare it, and we have significant work to do in actually engaging the community, our awareness campaign, and the process leading up to that. So timing is one. That said, May is an exciting and energetic time on campus, a bit stressful as well, but we have students and we have the culmination of an academic year with a lot of positive press and positive awareness around commencements and those types of things. So actually using that to actually hit the community at a high point is a pro. It just shortens up that time frame. November is more of a traditional voting cycle, so you could run into two things. In a special vote, you tend to see voters go out purposefully when they're for something, but in a traditional election cycle or voting cycle in November, you may just see a larger number of folks voting, which means you may have a larger number of folks voting against it.
There's no election in 2013, November.
Yeah, Trustee Kaiser, I'm aware of that. It's the timing of the election and the way we have trained our public about when they vote and what they do that may actually lead to, and I don't know, I believe we can get those statistics, but I believe special elections in November have a higher turnout than special elections in May and August. And so that's what I'm getting at. So those are just some of them that we need to consider. I can tell you that my position right now is November would most likely be my recommendation, but like I say, I think there's some things to at least consider, and I did not want to make that recommendation without giving you the opportunity to have the conversation and the consideration.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Just a quick, there's no scheduled election at the time. Do we bear exceptional expense then for having an election?
Yeah, for special election.
And what's it going to be?
I hate to throw out numbers. I don't know, Dan, do you have any idea what the cost of a special election is?
Oh, I would hate to
Yeah.
second guess on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's $35,000-$40,000 just off the top of my head. And please don't hold that to me. But have to check with the county.
Normally we're getting the normal right now is 8 to 12. If we're just for our trustee election, let alone a special election. So if you figure they have to gear up everything just for us, Dan's probably right.
Considerable.
Is that something you can maybe attempt to find out for us?
Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to look
Okay.
into that.
All right. I don't know if it's ever been done. Okay. Any other
Mr. Chairman,
questions? Yeah.
the other items for the November 7th study session are the audit
Okay.
presentation.
That'll be quick.
New policies and procedures for development, a list of those.
Okay.
The community college role and the update of the strategic plan.
Okay.
And the board self-evaluation.
Okay. That'll probably give us time.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, my last element of my report is just a report back to you as a board based on some questions and conversation that happened during the Facilities and Finance Committee meeting, but I think some of the questions that Trustee Mosier had, and I don't want to speak for you, Trustee Mosier, but I believe you thought it would be useful for me to at least make a few comments about the phased retirement program to the board. We do have a phased retirement program, and I believe I could tell you what the specific details are, but it mirrors in a policy to our transitional opportunities program as well. And I think the question that came up is if we have a phased retirement program, how much is it being utilized? Is it useful? And is this something that the board should consider continuing or perhaps refining? Our phased retirement program, while it has been on the books for quite some time, has never had anybody take advantage of that. In some part, that may be because of lack of awareness. We actually believe it's more because of the availability of the Transitional Opportunities Program and the lack of desirability of what the phased retirement program actually does for our faculty and staff. And it does apply to faculty and staff. In addition to that, the phased retirement program, which actually reduces somebody to essentially 50% of their work time, they receive full benefits for that. So when we encourage that as an institution, they become probably the most expensive positions that we have on campus because we bear the full cost of benefits for these individuals. They're working part-time though, and we oftentimes have to back into that. So I'm happy to.
Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, you just mentioned that though we drop them to half-time employment, we still have to pay full benefits, and that's not entirely so. I mean, we pay full health care benefits, but not, we prorate retirement benefits for their reduction in time.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Kilty, you are correct. We pay full the dental, the health, and those benefits once they reach that threshold, which are the largest driver of our benefit costs.
I'd just like to make one point, and Joe, I didn't fully understand what you said there, but I interpreted it to mean that you thought that this phased retirement program did very little for our faculty and our staff. On the other hand, the point I would like to make is that if we would make better use of it, we could use it to make some orderly transitions in retirements at time. And just one example that came to mind is we've got a chemistry program with Rich Laidlaw heading toward retirement, and it's tough to find people who understand instrumentation and can take care of the amount of instrumentation we have down there. That is more instrumentation than undergraduates in chemistry at UW get to put their hands on. And this is a perfect way to maybe make an orderly transition.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Kilty, I would agree. I think my point is, as it's currently designed, and for those, roughly, I guess about a third of our retiree age folks that qualify under TOPS, it's really not a tool that people prefer on campus. I think with some tweaking, and really what I believe is the interest of this presentation to you is if we see value, if you see value in providing some type of phased retirement program, early retirement incentive for that, the concept is still valid. How we deliver that probably needs to be looked at and changed. And I think that was what Trustee Mosier had asked, the board to consider. Should we take this off the book? Should we refine it? Is it fine as is? I certainly can't say that because nobody's used it, that it's wrong, but it's certainly an indication that we need to look at why people aren't using it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Ed.
I would agree. The reason typically people have not used it is you have people who were eligible for TOPS, and that was let's say, an improved program that provided better benefits, and so it was pretty obvious they would take that. But I think as we look at Kevin's point about some people and the transition, if we could look at how that benefits the institution in achieving that transition, saving money and providing continuity in the quality of instruction, or other staff positions, non-instructional positions, that's what we want to do. And I would hope we would take a look at a program like that and work with the folks and try to come up with something that benefits both parties.
Yeah, by all means, Trustee Mosier, I agree completely. One point that was brought out to me that sort of illustrates how we might tweak this, if somebody were to exercise the benefit for phased retirement, move to 50% of their salary, they receive 50% of their salary, but it inhibits them from working in other capacity with us or within other state agencies, as I understand, and yet they cannot start drawing on their state retirement programs while they're still employed even at 50%. So you're essentially asking an employee at this current time to work half-time, get half of your salary, but you're truly not able to draw on your other retirement benefits within the state. Now, certainly if you have private retirement benefits and qualify for Social Security and all that good stuff, you have other options. But that's the type of thing with the current system that I think employees find it less than appealing, and so we should certainly take a look at that if that's your interest.
Any other questions on the phased retirement program? Anything else, Joe?
Mr. Chairman, I am done.
Okay. David, I'm sorry I didn't call on you, but I'm going to give public the availability for public to make comment, and if you'd like to go up to the podium. David, you need to go up to the podium if you want to make a public comment.
All I wanted to do is point out that any special election would cost the same, whether you had it in May, August, or November.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on President's report for the public?
We knew that.
Anybody else? Okay, we're going to move on. Board reports. First board report, finance facilities.
I'll go ahead.
Okay, Kevin. Go ahead.
We had probably what is the most brief meeting of that committee to date a week ago on Tuesday. And the bulk of the meeting was spent talking about the phased retirement and also clearing up a misunderstanding about budget process that if anyone wants to question me about, they can, but I don't think it's particularly pertinent. And we looked at the fund budget and balance reports, and unless Ed corrects me and I'm wrong, I don't remember that there was anything extraordinary to talk about other than when adjustments are made for monies carried forward next year, we will be within our 8% statutory requirement. And really, that's basically all I have to say.
Okay.
No addition.
Okay. Very good. Okay, our next report, College Communications and Relations. Carol and/or Bill. And Bill, you got a special shot later down the road.
Do you want to talk about your trip to?
Well, that's coming.
Yeah, I'm going to let him do that.
Oh, you're going to do that
Yeah, I'll do
separately?
that.
Comes afterwards.
I'll do that in a minute.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I had asked that we be given some kind of a charge because I don't feel like we're really, we don't really have a mission with this committee. And so I don't know how Bill feels about that, but if we're going to continue on this committee, I think we need some kind of a charge. And I did talk to Joe about that, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay. You've had some big charges this year.
We have, but.
And I guess I will remind you that one of the ways our committees work is we take a look at them every year. So you may have done a lot at the very beginning, which you did, with the presidents and being involved in the other so on, and I would imagine as we move into another year here very, very soon, we will decide if that needs to remain. If not, we will get other pertinent activities coordinated. So I hear what you're saying. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, see, we have been involved with faculty and with student government and all, but no, we need, if that's what we need to continue doing, fine, but otherwise we need, as Carol said, a new charge.
Okay. Very good. Okay, Governance Committee, they?
Mr. Chairman, we have nothing to report.
Okay. Not working on anything?
No.
You got her done?
No.
The only thing I'd add to Carol's and Bill's question is, Brendan, Joe, and I talked about it, is once a committee has completed its charge, I think we're going to add that to the new language, that once a committee's completed their charge, that it's dissolved, so that you don't sit there and wonder what you're supposed to do. So once you're, and you can always create another committee in the future, but once you're finished, dissolve it. And
I don't know, did we address that in those policies?
Yeah.
I think you did.
Yeah, it was addressed, Greg, but I can't remember the exact language, but it was addressed.
Okay.
Now, if Joe would still like to utilize this committee with any assistance that he needs in writing policy, I know that John and I would both be available to do that. So.
Okay. All right. Next report would be on the 2012 ACCT Congress, which was held in Boston, Massachusetts in October.
Mr. Kaiser said I have to go first because I wrote out a report.
Okay?
Well, I would like very much for you all to read the report, and I'm certainly not going to go into the details of it. I really command and demand that Dr. Kildee read it for sure, and the rest of you, I'd hope you would read it. But anyway, one of the things that was very important was that there's all these foundations that are really getting involved in the curriculum and in all these things. Unfortunately, Wyoming is not getting any of this wonderful money that's coming from these foundations. They're mostly going to states that are in troubles financially and so on. But one of the things too, there are a long little things that I heard. One, if you let students register late, what makes you think they'll complete the course? And then John made me do the voting delegate because he's very important as a teller in both committees, so I did that. But one of the things too that I thought was there's tremendous emphasis on building curriculum between the K-12 and then the community colleges. And I think it's very important that we continue on with this process like Joe has started us on, because I think that's going to be down the road very, very important. But I've just included two of the handouts, because you go to any conference, you all know you get page after page after page of handouts. But these were the two that I thought were really quite interesting, and I hope that you'll enjoy reading them to see some of the things that were discussed and were part of the process. I appreciate being able to go. I think that you get a new perspective on a lot of things. Some of the other colleges, of course, when they have 100,000 students and this and that and the other, it's just a different ball game. And then a lot of them, and even our own Central Wyoming College, they have like 7 different areas that they bring in trustees from. It's just some of the processes don't quite match up to what our own things are, but it still is interesting to hear what they have to say. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions about and/or John, who were both at the conference?
I'd just add that I was invited to go early, and they had a 2-day symposium, and it was primarily on what we've been working up towards and giving examples of how people are working, and that's completion, of course. And as Bill said, the 3 foundations that are pushing it are Kresge, Kmart, Gates, and Lumina. And they're the big proponents that are leading the charge is, I just drew K's, blank on K's, McClenny, Kay McClenny and her husband, they're both now out of Texas. You may have remembered when Kay was the director for Jim Geringer's college, and they pretty much are saying what Bill previously said and pushing starting, with the Gear Up, not just depending on Gear Up and going out and going to all the students, not just the ones that are eligible for federal funding, and realizing that those, I thought it was great when Kay said that it'd be nice if a lot of these small federal programs would go away, because they reach out to such a small niche of students that those students are very successful, but it's such a limited number. And if we could take what they've learned from those small programs and put it to the entire student population, things would be a lot better on campus, and you wouldn't have the 25, and I'll pick on Shar since that was one of the programs that Kay mentioned, was TRIO, as far as getting those students. We all have heard TRIO successes, but it'd be really nice if we could get that campus-wide instead of, I believe you usually have about 25 to 50 students.
160 to
Okay, even still, 160 out of how many thousands of students that we serve, so I guess I'm going by how many show up for the dinner is what I was using. Okay, 25, and that's what we're working towards, is those that go through these programs and actually graduate. And we know that they're successful, but we need to get them campus-wide.
Any other comments on the trip to Boston?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask a question in terms of the completion, and I've read, listened, and heard a lot about that, but I was wondering at this conference, did they discuss much beyond completion? It's one thing to complete a degree, whether it's an associate's or to get a certificate, but did they talk about that next step we're all concerned with, and that is, were they pursuing programs that led to the opportunity? I didn't say absolute because there typically isn't, but the potential for employment. Did they talk about that?
Yes, there was considerable discussion, and I would say this, that they also discussed the fact that so many programs, and we have some right here, like the wind energy and so on, where young people get a certain amount of information or knowledge from it. They're hired out into a company and they are off making $75,000 and $100,000 without having that completion. And so you've got to try and persuade them to realize that maybe they have to think about what's down the road. And a lot of it, and Joe, you've alluded to this many times, is that it's counseling. It's proper counseling. And explaining why finishing and having that actual piece of paper is what makes a difference for down the road when you're 30, 40, and 50 years old. And there was a lot of discussion of it, yes.
One of the programs that really I was intrigued by is one of the community colleges in San Antonio. They go down into the high schools and they start with the 15, 16-year-olds, and they have a program that students have to apply for, and they're put through rigors, and they're going through the collegiate level at the 16, 18, but I'll just use the student that they brought with them. She started at 16 and she's now 22, and she's working for Lockheed, and she started out as a jet engine assembler, and now she's into contracts, primarily with the military. And Lockheed they're working with the employers. They have a program with Lockheed and with Toyota and Martin Marietta. Those are the ones that they've mentioned. And they had a smaller machine shop owner that was there as well, and they're hiring. I believe it was Lockheed that is only hiring their employees through this program, and they set it up. And here's this 22-year-old girl that I shouldn't call her a girl, but we can do that when we get up there. But anyway, she's talking about a six-figure salary at 22, and she says my cousins are maybe working at McDonald's, and she's quite successful, and being it's Texas, she's got her pickup paid for. So, and she was pretty impressive. She got up and spoke as well, and going on about starting them into the college thinking well before they get to college.
Okay. Good. Good feedback. Anybody else?
Greg, when we're done with this subject, I'd like to go backwards and talk about the committees on the board. Joe found for me what our policy is on committees. So whenever you're ready, we can.
Okay. Any other on Boston trip?
I'll just finish up. Next year's is in Seattle, and I would strongly encourage some of the board members to go, and as Bill said, it's well worth the trip.
When you, Mr. Chairman, I just want to follow up on what John said there. I would appreciate board members attending. Do you find or see value in any way, because you said they brought a student, is it good to bring a faculty representative or somebody else to something like this, because they would be hearing the kinds of things that both of you talked about?
I'd address, most of the students that are there are from colleges that have a student trustee. The San Antonio school, they were making, obviously, the presentation, so they had a guy from Lockheed, and they had the guy from the machine shop, and then they had the director of that particular school, as well as their chancellor and the student. So those were the 4 or 5 that were speaking. And but Bill mentions here in his last paragraph, or not the last, but yeah, Saturday morning was more the foundation. I was sitting next to a couple of students, and they were very much engaged in asking questions of the speakers. You know, if the board in the future, and I wanted to take a student with them, I think that'd be great. The one that I would encourage would be taking a student to the NLS in DC and having them speak to the congressional people rather than just hearing from trustees every year. Because I know there was talk at the NLS, because I want to say Sheridan brought 2 students, and there was talk of just rotating between the 7 colleges, bringing 2 or 3 students every year to the NLS, but
I would just add that you've got to realize that like in a big city like Boston, there are community colleges all around the area. So for those students to come and give testimony and do all that, it's a very reasonable cost, so to speak, versus having an airplane ticket and all that, which is very costly. But I'm just saying there is, like around Seattle, there's all kinds of community colleges that could send people.
I think the 2 I sat next to were from New York, so like Bill said, they had just a train ride up.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Lots of good. Okay, we'll back up. Brenda, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under board committees, which was policy 1.2.6, in the policy that we voted on as a board, we said that the board chairperson may create temporary and special board committees as he or she deems necessary. But then under provision or subdivision 2 of that paragraph, it says duties of each committee shall be outlined at the time of appointment, and the committee shall be considered dissolved when the duties assigned have been discharged.
So I didn't put it succinctly this time. Thanks, Brenda.
Okay.
So I guess I would say it would probably be a good idea for you as the board chairperson to say whether or not you consider a committee dissolved, rather than us just wondering if we're dissolved.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, any public comment on board reports? If none, we will move forward. Approval items. First approval item is going to be the Heinz Capital Core Project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I won't go into a whole lot of detail. You had a very comprehensive and good conversation and presentation about the Heinz Capital Core Project and the interest in the folks associated with that project in having LCCC involved. My conversation about the role that the Heinz Capital Core Project may play in helping solve some of our student housing concerns. I promised to come back to you with a request for some formal direction, and so this item is that request. I have included a copy of a letter of intent that I would submit to Mr. Ohashi, basically outlining your interest and your delegation to me to engage in more formalized conversations, predominantly focused on conducting a survey of our students to find out what the demand and the interest would be in that type of housing, and then also looking at and exploring what type of management models would best fit if we were to enter into this this type of arrangement. That's the gist of the letter of intent, and so with that, Mr. Chairman, I will pause for questions and await your direction.
Okay, any questions? If you haven't had a chance to look at it, please look at it. So, and I guess I'll start off with the first question. So basically what we're asking, or what we're saying is that we're interested in pursuing the viability of the project, and that we would like to get this survey done and get some definitive recommendation on how we would manage the housing situation, because that's what we're talking about right now. And that also we would try to get this done within the next 90 days.
Mr. Chairman, you are correct.
Okay. Any other comments? Discussion? Any comments from the Heinz Capital Core Project? I was
just gonna.
Kevin, I'm sorry,
make
go
it-
ahead.
Well, it's your relaxed manner tonight, but it heads over only to this part of the room.
I don't know.
We're talking about
This
these.
side of the table.
We're talking about taking 90 days to go from this letter of intent into a somewhat more formal arrangement. But that only, we're talking about exclusive negotiating rights for just 1 year at a time, and a year goes very fast. What really is the time scale of this project? Can anybody give me a time scale?
Yes, that'd be great. That's real happy. I'm sorry, I'll move my leg this way. It'll get me.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Alan Ohashi, and managing partner of the Heinz Capital Core Project, and we feel that the 90 days is realistic to get through this first phase. Is likely will happen much quicker than that, and the 1 year, you know, we should know pretty quickly after the 90-day period, working with Dan Baxter and Kaiser and Company, what the realistic time frame is. But we feel that you know, we should really, you know, our plan is to get this going in the springtime, and you know, well within the 1 year period. And should the project come together, you know, had a brief conversation with Dan. You know, we should be able to put the project together within 30 to 60 days once we have figured out a reasonable and safe pro forma. And Dan can, you know, talk to that as well if you need you know, how the relationship might work between the board and my group, and you know, how that may come together.
Let me ask a question. What is a final use agreement?
Certainly not a term of art, but I think it's descriptive in terms of, okay, when we come up with whatever the formal idea is, then we can call it what it ends up being. If it may end up being a lease, it may end up being a purchase,
Okay,
it may be some kind of, some
So that's just
actual
kind of
term.
a placeholder as
As
to
a
what the
placeholder
ultimate
term,
agreement
yeah.
is going to be. Okay, gotcha. Okay, anyone else? Yes, John?
I was just curious why we needed a formal letter to pursue this. Being I wasn't able to be here for the study session, I didn't really see that in the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Kaiser, and I'll look to you, Alan, for some help here too. I believe twofold. One of them is to actually go on record as saying, as the board, we are interested, here's our intent to do this, we're asking you as the president to engage in this. But I believe for the Heinz Capital Core project to actually pursue other angles and look at financing package, other types of developments with the commercial and retail spaces, they need to have some assurance and some indication of our interest in actually pursuing the project. So in many ways, it's a symbol of your interest and commitment to pursuing that, but I believe it also helps the Heinz Capital Core project in its entirety move forward with some of the conversations you need to have. Is that fair?
Right, I would say so. It's, we're basically all in on this. And so what this says is that we're not going to go and look for a hotel, we're not going to be looking for another developer to come in with another housing project to, compete with this. We're going to push this through as far as we can get it to happen, presumably to fruition.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I don't know if Gay has any comments or Tara. They both helped on some of the language in here, but I don't want to put you on the spot, Gay. I'll put you on the spot.
Just for a second, it was important to have this in writing because, there are a couple of things that we're doing. Number one, we're committing to work towards this, accomplishing our study within 90 days. They're also saying we will not negotiate with anybody else. So just an informal understanding didn't quite accomplish that. In addition to that, we wanted it to be very clear that we aren't, even though we're doing this 90-day look, we're not guaranteeing that we'll go forward with anything further if the look does not, show the real need or the people will use it. So we just love stuff in writing, John.
That helps more. Thanks.
Good. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on that too. So if I'm understanding right then, Gay, the first look, as you described, will be over 90 days. But then, Mr. Ohashi, what you're saying is you won't negotiate with anyone else about the Heinz building for a year?
Right.
Is that correct?
That's right.
You're all ours for a year?
We're all yours for a year, and we're...
That's assuming that I guess we do need some clarification on that.
But we'll know that
trigger.
Mr. Chairman, we'll know that at the end of 90 days when we report back with the student analysis as well as the management structure opportunities.
So there's no interest in people living there, we're just done. If you come back and give us some evidence that folks want to live down there,
Right, and the other one is unless we get Batman to throw a bunch of extra money out of his utility belt, then that might stop the project as well.
Okay.
So, Mr. Ohashi and Gay, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, so after the 90 days, then we're going to talk about entering into a definitive final use agreement? Is that the plan?
I think we'll have to see what it is, Brenda.
Okay.
We don't know what it is. It could be a lease, could be some type of agreement to say that we'll fill X amount of the units. I don't think we know what it is yet, so.
So what is going to take place over a year then when it says there's exclusive negotiating rights for a year? So even after the 90 days, I'm not understanding.
Step one is somebody's going out and do a feasibility study to see if there is interest in folks living in this facility. If there is, then they're saying to us, we're going to figure out how to get that, and that's the second piece of the 90-day thing. We're going to figure out what we think is the best way to do that, and we'll only work with you on trying to get that done. And like I say, I don't think, they may be farther down the line in the thought process, but we aren't as to what that management, what do you call it? Management approach may be. I guess what I'll point out is there is no legal commitment here, Brenda.
Okay.
None.
Okay.
The legal commitment comes with whatever the final use agreement is. So.
Okay.
There's no legal commitment from us.
No. And really not from them either. I mean, they could just walk away and say, I'm not going to do anything. I mean, but that isn't how you do one of these.
Then I'm confused, because Gay said this essentially puts the property off the market. So does it or does it not?
From my perspective, it's off the market. We're all in with LCCC on this.
Yeah.
Does the contract say that?
Yes,
No.
it does.
Because the way I'm reading it, kind of does, but I'm not.
I don't know. My interpretation is
legally-
not a contract, okay? It's two parties coming together,
Yeah.
documenting what they want to do. And
Yeah.
there is some kind of faith
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what the term is, but there is a duty. The parties are saying, look, I'm going to go work on this, you're going to go work on this, we're just documenting it right.
Yeah, so after the 90-day study, we'll get a better idea of what the rest of that year-long process is going to look like.
Correct.
I get it now.
Plan of attack, I would hope.
Yeah, it makes sense to me now.
And we could attempt to move forward with what that is, so. Kevin, go ahead.
Surely, when we're talking about taking this period in which you are not going to negotiate with anybody else, we're just talking about the housing units, and the rest of the building is not covered by this at all. The building is not entirely housing. There are many other things involved here.
Exactly. It's just for the scope of this particular component, which is the housing component.
Second or third floor up.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to hear from Christy DePorter, if we could, from Downtown Development Authority, and I'd like to get her thoughts and maybe the DDA's vision on this project.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I just wonder if we have any idea of what the exploratory cost range might be for us. What are we reaching into our pocket for?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Mosier, without doing a formal assessment of it, I would say it's fairly nominal. The two major activities deal with, one, asking our students about their level of interest. That would be a survey, and there may be some nominal mailing costs, printing costs associated with that. But then the second one is really staff time to sit down and work with Mr. Ohashi and his team to talk about the issues, to do the research and do those types of things. So I don't anticipate any major expense associated with this phase of our exploration.
Okay, Christy, go ahead.
Yes, Christy DePorter, Executive Director of the Downtown Development Authority. You have before you, I believe, a copy of a letter that John Sendall, President of the DDA, provided to you, which was a letter of support for this project, and really a thank you from the Downtown Development Authority Board of Directors for you to even consider this as a possible project for the downtown area. I can tell you that the development of the Hines and the whole has been a negative factor in trying to get downtown revitalization. The DDA has put forth funds on multiple levels and in different timeframes to provide funding for the development of this project. We do not have and have not had any conversations regarding possible funding or partnerships with this project, but I can tell you that the Board of Directors would very positively look at becoming a working partner on this project. I think having students from LCCC residing in the downtown area would be a spark for a tremendous revitalization process, and I think it would also be a wonderful experience for the students, and I think this could be an opportunity for entrepreneurialships with the businesses within the building itself. I think you'd have some rare opportunity to combine education and work experience, management experience, ownership experience with the spaces that the students would have access to. So I just came forward to let you know that the DDA would be more than willing to be looking at being a working partner on this project, and if there's anything we can do to help facilitate it or provide support to it, I think we would be all in as well.
That help?
Tremendously, thank you.
I'd just be curious to see the letter.
That's right here.
I had one copy of it that was on the bottom of my pile, and I just fished it.
I was looking for it here. I thought maybe it was scanned and linked in. Oh, 2 copies.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to move, please, that the Board of Trustees express its formal intent to explore the options for student housing as part of the Hines Capital Corps project, and that we direct the President to realize this intent by submitting the accompanying letter and actively engaging in this exploration on behalf of the Board.
I second that motion.
Oh, well.
Oops, he beat you.
You did not.
Vicki makes the call.
Vicki make the call.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any other discussion?
I am really thrilled with this project. Thank you to all of those who brought it to us.
Ditto.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, let's take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We'll be in touch with President Schaefer and be back with the Wicked Witch's broomstick.
The only reason I voted
Thanks, appreciate
in
it.
phase two, wasn't a whole lot of questions.
I understand now what it is.
Okay, item number B.
I mean, I did the tour, called you to see if you wanted list.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is going to get increasingly complex for my limited brain capacity, but it's a good thing that we have some wonderful resources in the audience. We've had numerous conversations leading up to this point regarding the refinancing of the Albany County campus bonds and the lease arrangement with the LCCC Foundation. We had a presentation at previous meetings. In fact, now we've had a couple of presentations. Mr. Baxter has sort of walked you through the process as it exists. Before you, we have four primary documents for you to consider, two that you will need to take action on. The first two are resolutions. And we've ordered the staff recommendations in this regard, what we believe to be the appropriate sequence of your actions and your considerations. So I will try to touch on those briefly. The first one is a recommendation that you pass a resolution to exercise your right to purchase the Albany County campus property, which exists in the current lease arrangement that you have with the LCCC Foundation. Once you decide and determine if you want to exercise that right to take hold of that property, the second resolution then essentially resolves you to approve two leases. One is a ground lease agreement in which we will lease the ground that the college owns to the LCCC Building Authority, and then a lease agreement where the LCCC Building Authority will lease the facilities back to LCCC. The funds for, am I doing okay, guys? The funds generated through that lease agreement will go to service debt that the LCCC Building Authority will take on for the property. All this good legal stuff results in a considerable savings because of interest rates and all the good things that you've currently talked about. There are two other documents here, and those documents are for your information, and they pertain to the action, pending your action tonight, that the LCCC Building Authority will take tomorrow in regards to the indenture of trust as well as the leasehold mortgage. So with that, I think what I would do, Mr. Chairman, is open it up to questions, and as I said, I may call on Dan Baxter or Rick Thompson, got it, and names, to fill in the questions, because I know I will not be able to.
Okay. Questions? Kevin?
The question I have on the first resolution that we've got to vote on here is that this was entirely at our option to purchase this property, and it has nothing to do with the foundation.
That's correct.
Okay. I haven't seen that agreement, so I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead.
I'm probably just naive in this question, but how long will it take us to pay off? It's a matter of paying off the debt, right?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Merrill, that is correct, and our date for payoff is?
2024.
Thank you, Dan.
It's the same term as we had with the foundation, as far as the term of payoff, the lease payments.
12
so it'll be paid off
Yep.
by
or something, 12 or 11.
Not bad.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So bottom line is we're just refinancing,
Right.
basically.
I like it. Thank you.
Same
Help
term.
Sean get a new building and learn and
Do you need a motion or not?
I would love a motion if somebody wants to give one.
I'd so move the first one to the resolution to exercise the district's option to purchase the Albany County campus property.
That's second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
How is this going to affect the valuation of the college in the future when we go to ask for any legislation through capital construction, or the valuation of the college as far as any?
Bond capacity?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Mr.
Dan,
Chairman.
I throw that one to you.
It has to do with the county valuation, not the college valuation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dan Baxter with Kaiser and Company. I'm here this evening with Rick Thompson from Hathaway and Coons, who served as bond counsel on the 2004 transaction for the foundation, as well as on the 2006 and 2009 transactions for the building authority. But to answer the question, there is no impact on the general obligation bonding capacity or borrowing capacity of the college. What the building authority is doing as your financing conduit, as your public benefit nonprofit corporation, is they're issuing the bonds, you're entering into a lease agreement with them that is subject to annual appropriation. So your lease payments back to them have to be approved within your budget each year. And so you have the ability to walk away. And because you have the ability to walk away each year, it does not create debt.
Oh, that makes sense.
Does it make sense? Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? We got a motion on the floor? If not, let's take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will exercise our option to purchase and terminate the lease agreement. And
Mr. Chairman, I also move that we have this resolving approving the ground lease and the facilities lease agreement.
Okay. Okay, got a motion for a resolution approving ground lease and facilities lease agreement.
I second.
Okay, got a second? Okay, discussion? Discussion? Yes, sir.
Maybe I could just ask this simple question. You said that since we're free to walk away from this at any time, it doesn't create any debt. But surely there are bondholders who still would like to be paid.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. It would be very unusual for a governmental entity like the college to walk away from a moral obligation, lease obligation like this. Because it's essentially, going into these type of agreements, you're acknowledging they are essential facilities for the college, or we couldn't do the financing in the first place. But technically, it has been done before. I mean, there have been some entities that have walked away from the leases. Now, if you do that, it does hurt probably your credit rating, your ability to borrow with this type of lease-back financing mechanism in the future. If you want to do one of these deals again 3 or 4 years from now, bondholders have a long memory, and they probably wouldn't want to buy your lease revenue bonds. So, yeah.
Different entity.
Just clarification.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? I thought Tara was going to get up and say something, but it's okay. If not, let's take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we've got a resolution approving the ground lease and facilities lease agreement.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if we might ask Mr. Baxter just to give us sort of the next procedural steps, walk us through now and between now and November 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As per our last meeting on October 5th, I said one of the things we had to do now is get the bond attorneys going, preparing all the documents. Mr. Thompson's been very busy over the last 2 weeks putting together everything, and we'll need to get signatures tonight. But the next step, of course, according to our timeline we presented back on the 5th of October, is to meet with the building authority tomorrow, and they will approve the new the bond resolution, new lease agreement, authorizing the issuance of their bonds and entering into a new lease agreement with the college. And so we'll need to do that tomorrow, given your action tonight. And then from there on out, I've got a lot of work to do with Harry Andrews and Carol and with the different bank trustees in setting up the defeasance escrow for the 2004 bonds. So that when we close on November 6th, that all the funds will be in place to take care of the old 2004 bondholders. So on that particular date, the old 2004 bonds will be legally defeased. Essentially, all those old covenants go away and are replaced with a new set of bonds, the new trust indenture, the new lease agreement. And so we'll be working and getting all the closing documents approved, signed. The bonds themselves need to be signed, and some other things with bond counsel. So right on schedule, Mr. Chairman, right from day one, really. We talked about closing on Election Day, and we're still shooting for that.
Okay. Very good. Now, the hard part is I'm going to get need to get everybody's signatures on all these pieces of paper, so.
I'll leave that to Rick.
Before we leave the meeting, we will try to get that done. Kevin, you and I have got some extra places to sign as the chairman and the secretary, and then there's quite a few places for everybody to sign, so we'll take care of that administrative.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yeah.
the only documents that you need to sign tonight are the resolutions. We will
That's
set up
what I
a
have.
pre-closing signing to sign everything else, the closing certificates.
That's.
And the one document that requires all the board of trustees to sign is the front cover of the one, and then we will use that for both resolutions.
And just
then there
great.
are multiple places for you to sign.
Before we lose.
Do we need to get them to that?
Vicky will take care of it. There's a lot here, and I haven't looked at them in detail, and we'll just have to hang out and write.
Sounds good.
So,
Vicki, would you feel more comfortable doing that now, or will we have time after the meeting?
well, we just have a couple other items. I would say we just get through these items and begin. Okay, approval item number C, naming of the Wind Energy Laboratory. Lisa Murphy, you're going to talk to us about that.
Mr. Chairman, I always get to do the fun things. So the Walter Scott Foundation donated $200,000 to support the wind energy program and have pledged their continued support into the future. We are pleased to announce that with your vote of support tonight, we would like to move forward with an unveiling of the Walter Scott Wind Energy Lab. We would like to hold an unveiling and a small reception to honor the Walter Scott Foundation for their support of our wind energy program. We would like to propose that you consider this recommendation.
Okay.
That's all move.
Okay. I'll read that. The Board of Trustees approves naming the Wind Energy Laboratory the Walter Scott Wind Energy Lab in recognition of significant contributions the Walter Scott Foundation has provided to the LCCC Wind Energy Program.
I will second that motion.
Okay, got a second? Discussion? Discussion? We've discussed this before. If no more discussion, let's take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, we are working with Thorpe and Jocelyn Nickerson to schedule this celebration, and we will keep you posted when we're able to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, last item for approval. The number of top transitional opportunity plan positions available for fiscal year 2013. And Joe, I'm going to let you explain that and talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, according to LCCC policy, one of the requirements that we have is to bring forward to you the number of positions that we feel we can feasibly fund for the Transitional Opportunity Program. It is within policy for you to determine and set the number of positions that would essentially be available for employees who want to exercise their right for the Transitional Opportunities Program. We have taken that into consideration, worked and looked both at the fiscal impact should all these positions be taken, and after that consideration and consultation, we bring forward to you a recommendation that no more than 16 slots be open and made available for top qualified employees during the FY13 fiscal year.
Mr. Chairman, suppose that 16 employees don't take these slots. Do they just roll over automatically to next year, or next year you'll analyze the situation, make a recommendation for a completely new number?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Kilty, this is a liability that we anticipate in our budgeting for this current year. If we don't recognize all of that liability, then those funds would be either carried over, become part of fund balance, and we would do this exercise again next year. I can tell you that looking at the number of individuals who are eligible for the top benefit, I believe documentation that you have, we most likely will come back with 16 again next year as well, until all those folks who are eligible have exercised that benefit are no longer employed.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I move that the Board of Trustees approves no more than 16 slots be open and made available for top qualified employees during the current fiscal year.
I second.
Okay. Discussion? Discussion? Any discussion, questions? Okay, if not, let's take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, an opportunity for some final public comment on anything you would like. I will offer that out to the public. Oh, there we go. Jerry?
Mr. Chair and trustees, I would just like to take a minute to invite you to an activity we're having this weekend. It's the 4th annual Free-for-All. It was created out of the Service Learning Office 4 years ago to help students stretch their budgets. And this Saturday from 10 till 2, we'll be doing that again. We have free clothing, free oil changes, free haircuts, free dental exams, free massages to get students to relax. We have a lot of kids activities. We have a bounce house and a maze. We have a fire truck coming, fingerprinting, something for everybody. I think we have lots of door prizes that include movie passes, gas cards, meal tickets, and we're offering free lunch. What more can you ask for, right? So if you have some opportunity for time on Saturday, please stop by and see how our event is going. Oh, and free clothes. Tables and tables and tables of free clothes. So, thanks.
It's in the multi-purpose, Jerry?
Sorry?
What now?
It's in the multi-purpose room in the PE building.
That's what I figured, but
Thanks, Jerry. Okay, any other public comment? Let me go on with a couple more items here. There are some additional items, information only. I'll just list them off. You can either read them in paper or they are electronically. The contracting procurement report for October, study session summary, historical list of motions, and some correspondence from the U.S. Department of Interior. What does that relate to, Joe?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as many of you know, we had the opportunity of hosting the Secretary of the Interior on our campus as he made the announcement, but really signified the authorization to proceed with the Chokecherry Sierra Madre wind farm. We received a nice letter from the State Director of the Bureau of Land Management recognizing many of the folks here at the college who made that event successful for them. That's the correspondence.
Okay, okay, some other items. Next meetings and events. Our next meeting is a study session November 7th. Geez, I didn't realize this. Our regular board meeting is scheduled for November 21st, which is the night before Thanksgiving. So, Mr. Joe, what do we do about
just
that?
another word.
Mr. Chairman, do we really need to reschedule that?
I don't know. I will probably be in Casper. If I know my wife.
Someone else could sit in your place.
Absolutely correct. I'm just counting.
That still leaves a quorum.
There's a quorum.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Kilty, I will have my in-laws in town, so I would be happy to be here. They're going to watch this on video,
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we just move on with our regular schedule, and I may not be in Casper, I just don't know what my wife's going to do.
Mr. Chairman, I think I'm going to have family obligations that evening.
Okay. I guess what I'm looking for is, do we want to reschedule it or not? And if not, we don't, and if we do, what's a practical time?
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
think staff is hoping that you will reschedule it so that they can enjoy their day off.
So do it a week ahead.
I would concur with Kevin, but I can fully understand staff's
What's the one after that?
desires.
What's the next Wednesday?
So when are you guys out, Joe? That whole week?
Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, is that correct?
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
Why don't we do it the 28th?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Merrill, that would probably be my recommendation. It would put you close to your December study session, but I think that may be.
Can make me come back to the last day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will.
Oh, that's after the election.
Well, our next study
Oh, the study session.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we have the meeting on the 28th of November.
Second.
Same time, same place.
Yeah, I don't know if we have to have.
We don't have to have
We just need to agree.
Yeah.
We're going to do that.
The chair can make
Yeah,
that
so
one
the 28th,
soon.
people good on the 28th?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
we'll do whatever we need to do to get her on the 28th.
I'll just be at your house that night, Kevin.
It's fine, the dog is in the garage, so I got room for you.
Okay.
Joe, you're invited to come to our house for dinner if you would like.
I'm going to a party.
Okay, any other items that anybody would like to bring up in the business meeting? From the board, any other items? Okay, one last shot at public comment on anything they would like to comment on. If not, we're adjourned.